Okay, thank you for joining today's meeting. We've got a few kind of interesting topics on for today, which I'll talk about shortly, including a little bit of information about the new governance committee that Argo project is going to put into place. Following that, we've got a short demo from Remington about a new feature called memoization, which I think is coming in either 2.10 or 2.11. Daniel, if he's here, will be asking a bit about what workflow templates would be most useful to add to the catalog. I don't know if people are familiar with workflow catalog, but we'll show that shortly. And then I'd like to gather some discussion around RBAC features for SSO to try and help understand what we should do with that feature. Thank you very much for the people who've already added themselves to the attendees list in the document. If you've not been here before, we like to get an understanding of how many people are joining the meeting and just understand how popular this meeting is. For those of you who are also first timers here, a little bit of information about what Argo workflows and Argo events are. Argo workflows and Argo events are both Argo projects used into it to effectively schedule and run workloads on cloud native platforms such as essentially Kubernetes. My name is Alex. I'm the principal engineer for workflows and events. And we've got a few other people here from Intuit as well who are going to be showing you some of the work that we've been doing. If you want to ask a question, obviously, you can ask it during the course of what we're seeing, and there's usually an opportunity to ask questions at the end of any kind of section or a demo. So please feel free to just ask away. If the question involves a longer answer, we might have to chat to you on Slack about that. And you can also ask questions in the Zoom chat room, and I'll reread those questions when they are asked. We will be recording this, and we share the recordings on YouTube, so you can share these with anybody who would have liked to have come but couldn't make it today. So our first topic today will be about the Bootstrap committee for the Argo governance project. And I believe, Eddie, you're going to be talking about that. That's right.
Yes, thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. Let me share some my screen here. 1 second. Okay, so you may have already heard. I think it's been there's been a lot of like blog articles and so on posted, but we're really happy and thrilled to have Red Hat join kind of the Argo project as a informally as a corporate member of the project. Red Hat actually has been contributing to the Argo project for some time. In fact, they actually maintain the Argo operator for OpenShift, as well as made other contributions to the Argo project as well. But this is really great that they are joining the project formally, kind of at a corporate level, and they will be becoming much more actively involved in the process. And I see that Ben and Xiaobik from Red Hat are online. They're actually members of the Bootstrap committee, and so I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves right after I go over the basics of what it is. So we created a PR or issue to kind of describe the charter of the Bootstrap committee, who's on it, what they will be trying to accomplish. But the committee is basically, we reached a point in the project, obviously when we became an incubation level project, the CNCF, we got a lot more interest. There's been a lot more users onboarding onto Argo, and the amount of work that the team actually has to keep up with just to manage PRs and issues and so on is very large, and it's growing rapidly. So we reached a point where we need to grow the community in a more ordered way that lets major participants participate more effectively in the project, as well as to ensure that everyone's voice in the community is heard, right? So as a result, we put together a Bootstrap committee to kind of go over what the long-term governance for the Argo project should be like, right? And so we created this PR, and you can see that Ben and Xiaobik and also Michael from BlackRock have introduced themselves on the on this PR. So please take a look when you have time. And then if we look at the actual contents of the PR itself, It describes what the purpose of the Bootstrap committee is, who are the current members, and what they've been chartered to deliver, right? So this is a temporary committee that will exist until the official governing body for the Argo project is set up. But we're super excited that the project has reached this state, and we'd really like to extend a warm, well, I hope the whole community extends a warm welcome to Red Hat, as well as newer members of the Argo community. So Ben Schobig, would you like to introduce yourselves and say a little bit?
Hey, Ed, sure. Thank you, everyone. I'm Shobhik. I work at Red Hat. Oh, sorry, I see a bit of echo on my audio. So I'm Shobhik. I work at Red Hat. I'm one of the leads on the Helm side on a bunch of operator usability sides, GitOps, and build efforts at Red Hat. I'm refocusing on GitOps and Argo CD. I love using Argo ecosystem of projects. Argo was the first one that brought me in. One of my goals as part of this engagement is to become a good community citizen, as well as also ensure that we have some basic guidelines in place so that we can scale this community, since it's an extremely popular and successful project, along with the wonderful people in the community. That's it from me. Back to you, Ed and Ben.
Thank you. Ben, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry, I don't have audio. Video. I had some audio troubles in the first part of the meeting, but it's 2020, right? It's wonderful to be here with the community. I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you. We can help the community grow and come up with the community have ownership, future, its governance, and all that. Argo has a great start, and so we just want to keep pushing on that and help it expand and grow and continue.
Okay, great. So a warm welcome from all of us working on the project. It's great to have you join the community. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Ed. So we were about to have a demonstration by Remington on the memoization feature, but unfortunately he's having some problems with his Minikube, which I'm sure is something we all are familiar with. So I thought I would just bring up the topic about RBAC for SSO. Just a quick show of hands from people here. Who's using normal kind of either client or server-based authentication with Argo workflows, and who's using a single sign-on? I think you can do a reaction by giving like a thumbs up if you're doing SSO. Hang on, I've just given you an either-or question, but I haven't given you a way to answer it in either-or. So just thumbs up for SSO and clap for something else. So a few thumbs up there. So people who have used the SSO feature are probably kind of familiar that you typically don't have SSO on its own. You often have some kind of access controls that go with it, because SSO is just the authentication part of the puzzle, not the authorization part of the puzzle. It verifies that you are who you say you are, but then doesn't determine what kind of permissions or what kind of things you should be allowed to do. And we were going to develop a role-based access control to go with SSO. That was, we kind of posited a couple of solutions, but what we didn't really do is spend a significant or adequate amount of time looking at what people's different use cases were. And this feature is now, I think, the most popular feature in our issues catalog. So RBAC for SSO, or maybe the second or third most popular issue. So we do want to kind of come up with a solution that works for the community. And I want to just kind of get a poll of people if they were able to use RBAC, what would they want out of this? For example, what kind of, our request in turning it into it was that people would be conferred through single sign-on, the same permissions that they would have got through kubectl. And actually that was not possible for us to implement it. It turned out to be impractical to actually do that. But I was interested to know, can anybody else talk a bit about what their needs are for RBAC?
Hi, this is Jared from New Relic. We just started using SSO in workflows. And I think our main use cases are around providing read-only access to all users and protecting specific workflows that are kind of like admin workflows from being tampered with or run by users that shouldn't have those permissions. The overwhelming majority of our workflows are executed by API calls. And so also having some controls to make sure that bot users have limited scope and can't do anything destructive would also be useful.
How do you permission your service users?
Like our service accounts in Kubernetes. We're using the Kubernetes RBAC. We are, I think, moving to EKS at some point, so that story might change a little bit in the future. I'm a little unsure how we're gonna look in the future there. Right now, I think we have a pretty simple model because we don't have huge usage yet. So we really just have like the single like workflows executor service account right now, because we haven't had a use case for more yet.
Is anybody else using SSO and would like to talk about their experience? Okay. So I think we'll probably move on to the next topic. I'm just going to ask Remington, are you ready or do you need a bit more time?
I think I'll need a little bit more time. I'll let you know if I get it figured out.
Okay, no worries. Okay, I'm hoping we've got Daniel on the line as well in that case, because he wants to talk a bit about the workflow catalog. Daniel, can I pass over to you?
Sure, and my mic wasn't working a second ago. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, just to answer your question really quick, just on the SSO topic, we are not using SSO at FactSet Research right now, but we'll be interested in it. We're currently using the hybrid auth, where you can provide, an auth token and it'll run under that, context, or sans that it will run with whatever service account I think the Argo server deployment runs as, if I'm correct. So right now, the Argo server deployment only has read-only priv, so that kind of unauthenticated users can't do anything, but you can do Argo auth logging, get a token and paste it in there. So a good use case for us would be being able to map different groups to different service accounts. And then, we could define the RBAC however we want in the cluster so that you could, create workflows or read them or delete them or whatever we want to do. Okay, so what we wanted to talk about today is the Argo Workflows Catalog. And for those of you that aren't familiar, the Argo Workflows Catalog is a new effort that was spun up about a month ago by Alex. And you can think of it as the equivalent to the Tecton catalog. It's basically a shared repository of workflow templates that we think people might find useful. So for example, building a Docker container or a container using like Canico, or maybe building Golang code, sending an email, kind of generic stuff that many people would find useful. So what we're looking to get is kind of a sense of whether or not people would find a catalog like this useful in an ongoing basis, and what kind of templates people would actually like to see contributed. I'm going to paste a link to the repository in chat, and it would be fantastic if people could kind of take a look and maybe file issues against it for, the kind of workflow templates you'd like to see contributed.
To where can we open issues?
Yep, so I believe issues should be enabled on the Argo Workflows catalog repo. So we could start just filing issues for, hey, I'd love to see a template to do X or Y or something like that.
Yeah, the issue is available.
Is it worthwhile showing people the current ones that are in the catalog at the moment?
Sure. If you give me 1 sec, I can share my screen and just go over what's in there real quick.
All right.
Sorry, 1 sec. I was not prepared to share my screen, so I don't really have a Chrome browser ready. Do you mind popping it up on your screen? Sorry, I have too many kind of company-specific tabs open in my Chrome to share it right now.
Sure.
Cool. So what we have right now is just some basic templates that I thought people might find useful or would be interesting. So for example, I wrote an Argo CD sync and wait template so that you can, trigger an Argo CD sync if you're using, say, Argo workflows for doing CI-based workflows. Same thing with SendMail. There was a contribution for posting notifications to Slack, which is fantastic. And I believe there's an open pull request for doing container builds using a variety of different technologies like, Canico or Makisu or just straight up Docker. And recently contributed Jenkins pipeline runner, which uses the Jenkins pipeline runner. So you can basically take your Jenkins file and actually start running it in Argo, which is something I found interesting. But it's kind of those shared templates that we're looking to get a sense of what would people find useful.
Okay, thank you for that, Daniel. We have one last topic on the community meeting agenda today. So this is going to be a pleasantly short meeting compared to some of the rather longer meetings we've had recently. Remington, who's been with the team for I think around 3 months, has contributed kind of a new feature called memoization. And I think he was having some problems with Minikube. I'm not clear if he's going to do a demo for us or if he's going to walk through the feature and maybe show some of the documentation. Remington, can I pass over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Perfect. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So like Alex was saying, I've been having some issues with my Minikube this morning. So unfortunately, I won't be able to do a demo, but I can go ahead and walk through, like you said, some use cases and the feature itself. So up here, I have a simple config map that is taking advantage of this feature. So right now, it's at the template level, and it essentially allows you to cache the outputs of any template and use the cache output in a later submission of a workflow to save time and resources. So the way that you define this is with this new memoized spec. And you define a key here. Typically, it's going to be parameterized. That's probably the most common use case. We potentially might add some sort of hash mechanism to do the entire template or the entire workflow at some point. But right now, it's parameterized, or you can do a constant string. And here you specify the cache type. Right now we only support config maps. So it stores the output into a simple config map, which makes it really easy to update and delete cache entries manually. And you specify the name of the config map here. We also hope to someday support some additional persistence layers as well, like potentially Redis or anything else really. And additional configuration options will go there when that is the case. But yeah, the use cases really are for it's very useful for ML because there's a lot of computationally intensive processes there, and a lot of users do workflows that would benefit from not being run more than once when they don't need to be, because your data doesn't always change. So yeah, that's the feature. There are also some UI enhancements that demonstrate the feature as well, but again, because my local instance isn't running, I can't do those. But yeah, that's the feature.
Yeah, it seems like this would be super useful, even like when you're doing stuff interactively, correct? Like you're testing out your workflow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to like wait for steps you've run before to run over and over again.
Absolutely.
And it would make it also easier to create, like if you have like dynamic programming type of things, or you're just processing lots of batches of data and you don't want to like keep track of what you've already processed. Like this would keep track of that automatically. And personally, I wanted something like this for some time. I don't know, are there other people who would find this feature useful?
Yes, absolutely. I think just for CI processes, I think I see this being tremendously useful. So very exciting.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. New Relic, we're definitely building some really interesting, complex workflows, and so I'll have to dig into this more. Not seeing the demo, but I can tell it sounds really useful for us as well.
Are there any additional features that any users have off the top of their head that is at the top of your wish list?
I heard that, hi, this is Christina from Envision. At the previous meeting, I heard that the events will show up with Argo 3.0 on the dashboard, and we'll be able to see how, not only that the workflow is running, but how it was triggered as well. So that would be very useful. And we really like I know you ported the cron trigger into the workflows, but like if we can get some of the other ones, because right now it's like 2 separate projects, and it would be nice to have it all in one place.
Oh, Christina, have you also looked at Argo Events, which provides kind of broader support? Is it too much work to install both, or what do you think?
No, we have both installed, and we see them. We use them, but for users, it's kind of hard to, because the triggers don't show on the dashboard right now.
Okay.
And it would be nice to have them like all in one place.
Are you using the like the cron job feature of Argo workflows, or the calendar feature of events to trigger your workflows?
We're using the cron job features of Argo workflows. We found that because it's a part of the workflows, it's much easier to adopt. Yes.
Remington, I think we've got a couple of items on the roadmap for memoization, is that right? And we've talked a bit about TTLing old data, and I think we've also talked about different places to store the memoized outputs and artifacts, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the next thing up on the list is TTL, like you said. So having the ability to specify an expiration period. So it'll probably look something like TTL seconds here. And you can specify, say, 300 seconds and have it expire in 5 minutes, something of that nature. Additionally, we were exploring adding spec level memoization rather than just template level. So being able to specify memoize up here and memoizing the entire workflow with a key of some sort. And we also had talked about, like I mentioned briefly, adding a Redis cache in addition to just the config map cache, and potentially other persistence layers as the community sees fit and as they're requested. But I think Redis is probably on the top of the list there. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Okay, Renton, thank you very much. If anybody does have any more questions, obviously you can ask in the Slack channel. I will just take over the screen share here 1 second.
Thanks, Alex.
So that was the last topic for today. Is there any topics that people want to discuss as part of any other business?
What's the Slack channel that we can post to? I have a question.
Yeah, if you want to ask questions, there is an Argo Slack channel that you can find on the Argo. It's usually linked on the Argo websites, but the particular channel we're talking about workflows is, I think it's just hash Argo-workflows, and there's obviously a hash Argo-events as well.
Right. Okay. Hi, my name is Adnan from Envision. I also have a question to, I guess, everybody here. Generally speaking, we're kind of in a phase of evaluating different CI tools. And we found that a lot of the CI tools, they're not Kubernetes native. A lot of them, it's like an aftermath of trying to take their Docker containers and build them into like Kubernetes support and whatnot. And we felt a lot of pain there. One thing that Argo Workflows does very well, obviously, it's the DAG is amazing. It's Kubernetes native. We get service accounts, RBACs, all that good stuff. What we did find lacking in Argo Workflow from a CI standpoint is that a lot of these things that you get out of traditional CI tools come out of the box, like being able to, git clone a repository or, build a Docker image. And I guess the catalog is addressing some of these concerns. I guess the question is, one big disconnect that we have, and I think Christina, my colleague, touched on this, is that the events portion, the triggering portion, and the actual pipeline portion, because they're so disconnected, we find that there's a lot of work from being able to integrate it from one pane of view. Being able to, for instance, attach a Git webhook and then trigger an Argo workflow. There's a lot of manual pieces there that traditional CI tools will give you out of the box. Is there any plans of sort of easing this pain, or is there anybody else in the community that's built a CI tool out of workflow successfully?
Yeah.
So to answer that, so initially when we built Argo Workflows, it was mainly focused on data and ML use cases. We didn't invest a lot on the CI use cases, but now we are seeing community using it for CI use case as well. So so in the next milestone, Alex Collins, we are doing the web. Yeah, we are doing the web integration. But if there are other features that are needed, can you open issues and we can see who else from the community can pick it up?
Yeah. So one of the reasons we purposely decided not to invest a lot in CI, because there was a lot of tooling available. Of course, they weren't as Kubernetes native, but there were a lot of tooling available, and we generally found that it's hard for companies to switch their CI infrastructure. So we were focusing Argo more on, like an area that is growing rather than something that is already established. However, so we basically left it open for any interested members of the community to kind of get together and create a CI solution around like workflows and events if they like. But the core project decided not to do that simply because we don't have like resources to do a complete solution in that space.
Yeah, and I think what I'll say is that the workflow engine itself was always meant to be a building block. So some of you may know that a while back we actually had a project called Argo-CI, and that was actually the CI application, so to speak, that was built on top of Argo workflows, because workflows itself was just intended to be the engine. And so, so at the workflow level, I think it will likely always remain a general purpose engine or a building block to build things on, to enable higher level applications like ML related applications or CI related applications. And I think I think it's appropriate to layer those type of applications on top of it. That said, we know that a huge advantage of workflows is its UI, and then I think one of the gaps, as you pointed out, was its lack of integration with Argo events. That is actually something that we were looking into for some time. There is, and it's still something we're open to in the future. A part of the challenge was how to integrate two currently disjoint projects. In other words, if we added that capability in the Argo server, we would likely need to decouple Argo server from Argo workflow controller in order for the Argo server to understand the events project and also the workflow project. So there was some technical challenges that we were facing, and but it's still something we're open to.
Yeah, I mean, if there's interest, I noticed there's currently no channel to discuss the CI use case on the Argo Slack, but there are people interested. Feel free to create a channel and then get like-minded folks together, and then we could see what kind of interest there is.
Yeah, I think one more thing we should address is that there are things. I mean, things would take a reasonably long amount of time to change the direction and move to a different direction. But I think one thing we should do right now is that I think we've got enough feedback to say that folks would want to use it as CI-like use cases, not a full-fledged CI. What we should consider doing is probably adding issues in our backlog to say, here are the most commonly used CI-like use cases, and ensure that we have extremely good community managed documentation, so that the first step should be, even if we can't make certain things first-class citizens, for example, checking out from Git, etc., it should be a no-brainer to read the docs and get them working, and it should be maintained by the community itself, while we gradually have the conversation on that, should this become a first-class citizen and what are its implications? I think, I mean, that discussion will probably take longer, but right now we've got enough evidence to say folks want to use it like a CI thing as well. So we should document it well, I think.
Yeah, one more thing I should mention is, while like Argo workflows itself doesn't directly support the CI use case, we do work with other teams in the community to support this use case. So for example, we've been working with GitLab, for example, to better integrate Argo CI, and also with the Tecton team. We've been working with the Tecton team to, because they're very interested specifically. They're also a Kubernetes native workflow engine, but they're interested specifically in supporting the CI use case. So perhaps one thing you might want to look at also is whether using one of these projects that integrate with Argo might also be a reasonable approach. So.
I mean, again, I think that's a great suggestion, Ed. I think what should follow from there is that if we agree that as a community, we shouldn't be building that because there is another open source project which is reasonably well governed, then our goal should be we should consider if we should officially say, hey, as a community, we recommend that for these bits, you use that, and here is how you should be using it end to end. Now, again, those are things we gradually decide as a community when we brainstorm those, I think.
Yeah. So even if we don't do something overnight, maybe it might be good to have a Argo Slack channel where people are discussing their needs, and
right. Yeah.
Different people may have already addressed it in different ways. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much for all your answers. I really appreciate that, and I guess it kind of speaks to the fact that Argo projects in general are very unopinionated, and for that reason, it kind of seems like we're hedging two opposite mentalities here when we want to get something very opinionated like a CI tool.
Right.
Use something very unopinionated like Argo to try and implement it. So I guess there's more than one way to do this. So, but again, to Shubik's point, I think very good documentation and I guess a more mature catalog where we can reuse some of these steps or these workflows might be the answer. Appreciate it.
I have a question. If this is not the right forum, let me know to discuss questions. I'm not sure what this forum is actually meant for. So my question is that can Argo workflows be used for synchronous workflows? So I call a workflow, I get a response back. So this kind of workflow can be used to drive UI, for example. I do not know what's the next page to display. So I'm looking for the values back, or I need to trigger something else. So I'm looking for the values back. So I need to wait for the workflow to trigger next thing. So is that a use case that has been implemented, or is this the right tool for this kind of use case?
So you can, via the APIs, trigger a workflow and then watch the workflow status as it progresses either to successful or failed, and then that will include the output of the workflow. So you can do that via the API.
Does the workflow has an output, or only the last step has an output?
No, you get the whole workflow back.
Yeah, the workflow itself can have it like essentially global outputs, and so as the workflow progresses, its step itself can say can mark output as global, and then at the end of the run have status dot outputs dot parameters dot whatever the value name is, and then essentially it's a predictable path in the workflow that you can retrieve the output from.
Got it. And it's not possible through the CLI. It has to be through API.
To possible from the CLI to what?
To wait for the workflow and get the workflow output.
Oh, well, the CLI does have a wait command. So, but right after the wait finishes, you'll probably need to get the JSON output of the workflow and JQ the.
Okay, so there is a way. Okay, that helps. Thank you. That's all I was looking for.
I just want to add a couple of additional comments around the CI use case. I think most of them have been covered. I always think it's really interesting that so many people do use Argo workflows for CI, given that the team never set out to support that particular use case. And we do know that we have some, we've discussed this at length, and we do know that we have some kind of features that are kind of necessary for a fully formed solution. For example, the ability to kind of cache layers from the disk between steps is something we don't really have first-class support from, though you can do that using artifacts. In 2.11, there's going to be a new feature that allows you to trigger a workflow template from a webhook, and that will support GitHub and GitLab. So you can define your build as a workflow template, and then you can create a thing called a workflow event binding, which then accepts a webhook event that triggers that particular template. That therefore doesn't require you to build any kind of infrastructure between you and GitHub or GitLab, or I think Bitbucket as well. We did it as well. Any topics? Any more topics that people would like to discuss today? Okay, I'll take silence as a no. So thank you very much for all joining us today. I will be putting the video up later online. And of course, if you want to continue the conversation on Slack, we look forward to hearing from you. Have a brilliant day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Okay.